All right, buckle up. Let's roll this out like a cinematic detective chronicle, where Judah and Kush are characters in a high-stakes drama, their timelines colliding under the shadow of empires. The scroll opens with the Table of Nations. Cush and Mizraim, that is Egypt, are brothers, sons of Ham. From the very beginning, the script tells us Egypt and Cush are kin, and Judah will always live in their shadow. Judah is still a dream, a kingdom not yet born. Cush is already a name whispered with weight, a land south of Egypt, mysterious and powerful. Judah. After David and Solomon, the kingdom splits. Judah is small, fragile, and caught between giants. Cush. In Nubia, the Cushite kings at Napata gather strength, inheriting Egypt's broken crown. Detective note: two players on different stages, but both orbiting the same gravitational pull, Egypt and Judah. After David and Solomon, the kingdom splits. Judah is small, fragile, and caught between giants. Cush. In Nubia, the Cushite kings at Napata gather strength, inheriting Egypt's broken crown. Detective note: two players on different stages, but both orbiting the same gravitational pull, Egypt and... So now the story shifts south. Pa, king of Cush, marches north and, well, he takes Egypt. His dynasty, that's the 25th dynasty, rules as pharaohs. Meanwhile, over in Judah, King Ahaz bends the knee to Assyria, paying tribute. Here's the thing, though. While Judah bows, Cush rises. The stage is set, folks, for their paths to cross. Right, this is the turning point. In Judah, King Hezekiah stands up to Assyria, refusing to submit. Sennacherib's armies surround Jerusalem, and honestly, the city trembles. Now from the south comes Taharqa, also known as Taharqa, pharaoh of Cush. His armies are marching north to confront Assyria. The record in 2 Kings 19 verse 9 and Isaiah 37 verse 9 says, Taharqa, king of Cush, is on the move. Here's a detective insight. Judah's survival is often told as divine deliverance, but geopolitically, it's Cush's shadow that actually forces Assyria to retreat. So the fate of Jerusalem is in fact tied to an African king. The prophets, well, they weave Cush into their visions. Isaiah chapter 18 speaks of envoys from beyond the rivers of Cush. Zephaniah 3 verse 10 talks about worshippers from Cush bringing offerings. Jeremiah 13 verse 23 asks, can the Cushite change his skin? Here's a detective note. Cush is both a real military power and at the same time a symbol of the farthest reaches of the known world. After Hezekiah, Manasseh takes the throne, but he's under the thumb of Assyrian power. Then Babylon rises, and in the year 586 BCE, it destroys Jerusalem and exiles the people of Judah. Meanwhile, in Cush, after Taharqa, Pharaoh Tantamani makes a brief attempt to reclaim Thebes. But alas, Assyria crushes him too. The Cushite pharaohs are forced to retreat south, ruling from Napata and later Meroe. It's quite the detective note here. Both kingdoms lose their high ground in the same century, Judah to Babylon and Cush to Assyria. They both survive, but they're certainly diminished. The Hebrew Bible holds onto the name Cush, but when it comes to the Greek Septuagint and the Latin Vulgate, they translate it as Ethiopia. Over time, readers get a bit mixed up, confusing Nubian Cush with Abyssinia, which is Ethiopia proper. Here's an interesting detective note, geography, rewritten by translation. Those African kings who once came to Judah's aid are remembered under a different name. We wrap up the case with a bit of a paradox. Judah, despite being a small kingdom, managed to survive Assyria's siege, thanks to the looming presence of the Kushite pharaohs. Prophets turned Cush into a powerful symbol of God's reach to the ends of the earth. Later translations might have blurred this memory, but the evidence is still there. Judah's fate was once intricately linked to these African kings. Judah and Kush, two kingdoms whose stories collided under the weight of Assyria, are remembered in scripture, prophecy, and archaeology. This educator module, presents a clear chronological story, emphasizing the African roots of Sheba, Solomon, and Noah, while integrating pigment-coded genealogical reclamation and mythic infrastructure. Ancient Israel's origins are, deeply intertwined with African civilizations and dynasties. The lineage of Sheba, the Queen of Sheba, King Solomon, and Noah all trace back to African roots, reflecting a rich heritage of cultural, spiritual, and technological sovereignty. Here is a clear and concise background on King Solomon's family, Solomon's African heritage and dynastic union, including his parents, their backgrounds, and the significance of their union blending the Sheba and Israelite kingdoms. King Solomon was the son of King David and Bathsheba. Bathsheba's heritage is linked to the ancient African kingdom of Sheba, also known as Saba, located in the Horn of Africa region. This connection places Solomon's lineage firmly within an African dynastic and cultural context, blending African and Israelite royal traditions. Bathsheba is traditionally associated with the royal family of Sheba, a powerful and wealthy African kingdom known for its advanced culture, trade networks, and spiritual influence. The Sheba dynasty was renowned for its political alliances and dynastic marriages, which helped consolidate power and sovereignty across regions. On the other hand, King David, Solomon's father, was the ruler of the united Israelite kingdom, known for uniting the tribes of Israel and establishing Jerusalem as the political and spiritual capital. His reign really laid the foundation for Solomon's rule and the expansion of Israelite influence. The union of Bathsheba and King David represents a significant dynastic alliance that merged African and Israelite royal bloodlines. This marriage symbolized the blending of two powerful sovereignties, reinforcing political alliances and cultural exchange. Solomon, as their son, inherited this dual heritage, embodying the sovereignty, wisdom, and spiritual authority of both kingdoms. His reign is marked by the flourishing of Israelite culture, architecture, and theology, deeply influenced by African dynastic traditions. This dynastic union, highlights the interconnectedness of African and Israelite histories and challenges narrow narratives that separate these cultures. It affirms Solomon's identity as a dynastic peer and heir to a rich legacy of African and Israelite sovereignty. King Solomon's heritage is, deeply rooted in Africa through his mother, the Queen of Sheba, who hailed from the ancient African kingdom of Sheba, or Saba. Defining King Solomon's mother as Bathsheba, we emphasize her African heritage, which is linked to the ancient kingdom of Sheba in the Horn of Africa. This is reinforced by the Song of Solomon's affirmation, "I am black and beautiful." This bit fits seamlessly into your page's narrative on African influence in ancient Israel and pigment-coded genealogical reclamation. King Solomon's mother was Bathsheba, and she's traditionally understood to have origins linked to the ancient African kingdom of Sheba, or Saba, located in the Horn of Africa region. This connection places Solomon's lineage firmly within an African dynastic and cultural context, reinforcing the deep African roots of ancient Israel's royal family. Now, regarding your question about whether Solomon married his cousin or dynastic peer, marriages within royal or dynastic families in the ancient world including ancient Israel and neighboring African kingdoms, often involved unions among relatives or peers to preserve royal bloodlines, alliances, and sovereignty. Solomon's marriage alliances, including the famous union with the Queen of Sheba's lineage, reflect this practice of dynastic consolidation and political alliance building. This lineage connects Solomon to the rich dynastic and cultural traditions of Africa, affirming his identity as part of an African royal legacy. King Solomon's family and dynastic union, well, it explains Solomon's parents, Bathsheba, who's linked to the African Sheba dynasty, and King David, and describes their dynastic union that blended African and Israelite royal traditions. The write-up highlights the political, genealogical, and cultural significance of this union, emphasizing Solomon's role as a dynastic heir who embodied both African and Israelite sovereignty. The Song of Solomon powerfully affirms this heritage and identity with the declaration, "I am black and beautiful." This phrase, celebrates blackness as royal, sovereign, and beautiful, reclaiming Solomon's identity beyond colonial distortions and racialized narratives. It stands as a proud affirmation of African dignity, beauty, and ancestral sovereignty woven into biblical tradition. Highlighting the deep African roots and cultural exchanges reflected in inscriptions and scribal traditions, we find ourselves emphasizing Sudan's long history of written culture and its influence on Israelite writing and theology. Sudanese writings found in ancient Israel, Kushite. Ancient Israel's written culture and inscriptions reveal a complex interaction with neighboring African civilizations, including those from the region of Sudan. Sudan, with its long history of written culture spanning over 2,500 years, contributed to the broader epigraphic and linguistic landscape of Northeast Africa and the Near East, like Yemen and Iraq. Sudanese writings, including old Nubian texts and inscriptions, reflect a sophisticated tradition of recording religious, political, and commercial information. These writings demonstrate the presence of an internationally aware local elite who adapted and integrated writing systems circulating in the region. Archaeological and epigraphic evidence shows that the cultural and linguistic exchanges between ancient Sudanese kingdoms and Israelite society influenced the development of writing and scribal practices in ancient Israel. This includes the use of early alphabetic scripts and the transmission of religious concepts. The presence of Sudanese inscriptions and writing traditions in ancient Israel really underscores the deep African roots and interconnectedness of biblical cultures, challenging those narrow colonial narratives that try to isolate Israel from its African context. This section highlights the importance of Sudanese written heritage as part of the mythic and genealogical infrastructure that shaped ancient Israel's identity and theological foundations. The Hebrew word Lavan comes from the root letters lamed, bet, nun, which, actually connotes brightness, gleaming, or clarity, not the racialized white of modern times. In biblical usage, Lavan is often associated with milk, moonlight, and gleam. This term connects to the Lavan, Lebanon family, symbolizing light and clarity rather than skin color or supremacy. As a lifelong descendant of the family name, I can personally attest, we are very mixed. Ancient Levant, Egypt, Israel, Lebanon, Yemen, Iran, Turkey, Morocco, Spain, Pakistan, Mongolia, Nagaland, Tibet, Vietnam, Philippines. Noah blessed his sons and gave them the whole earth, mapping their inheritances in a pigment-coded ceremonial way. Shem and his sons were blessed as dark and comely, given the inhabited lands, earth-rooted and flame-comely. Ham and his sons were black like the raven, given the coasts of the sea, sea-bound and raven dark. Japheth and his sons were all white, Lavan, and beautiful, given deserts and fields. Lavan meaning light, not white as a racial category. We at Lavan Media can attest, you know. This blessing is a pigment declaration, a ceremonial mapping of ancestral flame, pigment-coded, into indigenous peoples from ancient Israel to Canada, geography, and mythic infrastructure. It affirms the distinct lineages and their sovereign domains. Around 3000 BCE, advanced African river civilizations thrived along the Nile, Niger, and Congo rivers. These societies developed sophisticated riverboat technologies and complex social structures, laying the groundwork for later dynasties and theological systems. The oldest known African boats include the Dufuna canoe, discovered in northeastern Nigeria near the Komadugu Ghana River. Radiocarbon dating places this dugout canoe at about 8,000 years old, making it the oldest boat found in Africa and one of the oldest worldwide. Crafted from African mahogany, it measures roughly 8 meters long and reflects early African mastery of riverine boat building and navigation along major waterways like the Nile, Niger, and Congo rivers. Additionally, traditional boats such as the dhow have been vital along the East African coast for centuries. Dhows are wooden sailing vessels used by Swahili sailors to navigate the Indian Ocean for over 3,000 years, facilitating trade and cultural exchange between African, Arabian, Persian, and Indian societies. These ancient and traditional boats highlight Africa's long-standing, sophisticated watercraft technology, which has been, absolutely essential for trade, travel, and cultural connectivity across the continent and beyond. The architectural and theological foundations of ancient Israel show clear connections to African centers, such as Yeha and Axum in Ethiopia, and Misr, or ancient Egypt. These influences, honestly, reflect a shared mythic and technological heritage that shaped Israelite identity and ritual practice. This story reclaims the African origins of biblical figures and challenges colonial distortions that have obscured pigment-coded genealogical truth. It invites, I think, a deeper understanding of ancient Israel as part of a broader African continuum, honoring the ancestral flame and visual sovereignty of African peoples in history and religion. Thanks for watching.